everybody, it's Rachel here from Ladle by Ladle. I make videos on
eating disorder recovery, body positivity, self-love, intuitive eating, and veganism.
And if you haven't already, hit subscribe because today's video hopefully is going to be a real good one. I've wanted to make this video for a while now. Those of you who follow me on Instagram may already know, because it's something that I truly wanted to educate myself on and am kind of fascinated by. And the topic of today, as you may have already seen by the title of the video, is inpatient recovery. Inpatient recovery is a really major part of a lot of people's recovery experience, but it's nothing that I ever experienced firsthand. In fact, until I decided to look into inpatient recovery for this video, I'd honestly ever only heard horror stories about it. Although complications from undereating and compensatory behaviors did land me in the doctor's office a couple of times, I never went inpatient. I was never offered or even recommended inpatient treatment. I'm not really sure why this is, maybe because I didn't ask for it, or maybe because nobody around me thought I really needed it. I'm honestly not sure. Either way, I'm obviously totally okay with it because I ended up being okay and being able to recover on my own with the internet and the help of a therapist. But I still want to know, would having gone inpatient helped me recover faster, or would it have prolonged my recovery and made everything more confusing? I wanted to be informed about what it was like to be in an inpatient facility, what that process felt like, and if it was helpful. So, in an effort to educate myself, I've set out to understand it better. I knew I could just look up stuff on Google, but I wanted to know the real tea. I wanted to know what really went on in these facilities. So, I turned to all of you. And honestly, you guys were incredible. I put out a request for information on Instagram and you guys answered in waves. I was overwhelmed with the information that I asked for, and honestly, thank you guys so much for helping me out with this video. I received answers from men and women ages 11 to 45 all across the globe. And here is the breakdown of all of those statistics from your answers. I heard about experiences in public facilities and private facilities, facilities that were specifically created to help treat eating disorders, and more general hospitals or psych wards in hospitals. I learned so much from your stories, and I wanted to share that amalgamation of information that I learned with all of you guys here now. First, I want to start by saying that out of all of the stories I read, only 2 people felt that they left their facility completely recovered or basically completely recovered. Not to say that only 2 people had positive experiences, because actually a lot of you had very positive experiences in your facilities, but it was only 2 people who felt that the day they left their center was the day that their new life began and they were completely recovered. Because every single person is unique and different, all of your stories varied a lot. But there were common threads that showed up in basically every single one. And considering the fact you guys come from across the world, I figured this is kind of the hard and fast rules of most eating disorder treatment clinics. Some had a lot more bells and whistles and frills, some were just these basics, and most of them were somewhere in between. These were all of the bullet points that I found that were basically in every single one of these stories. Daily health check-ins or daily to weekly weigh-ins, group therapy, some had individual therapy focusing on DBT or CBT skills, or more fancy therapy such as art or music therapy. An exchange-based meal plan with increasing calorie allotments set by a dietitian typically, in which the patient had very little control in the beginning over what foods they were eating and more control as the program continued. Most facilities had limited to no exercise, which is a good thing. Some facilities had exercise, which I find questionable. A tier system of activities that you could participate in depending on your progress, including outings, projects, and games. One person said, "In my center in London, it was very BMI focused. For example, you could only attend some groups when you reached a certain BMI." I get it, but also BMI is bullshit. Timed meals and snacks, and using a supplement like Boost or Ensure to cover any calories that you did not eat during your meal times. Feeding tubes if you could not handle the supplement. Using games and group activities as a distraction from conversations around food. Rules around eating, like keeping hands on the table and feet on the ground, no talking about food, eating in a specific amount of time, no using the bathroom for 30 minutes to an hour after your meal. Veganism was not allowed, and vegetarianism was only allowed in special circumstances. Loved that. Bathrooms were monitored visually or by having you tell a story or sing a song as you went to prevent purging. Some of your facilities focused on the body, and some of your facilities were more focused on the mind, so the use of medication in these facilities I found in your stories varied greatly. And finally, discharging yourself was typically voluntary. Without sharing anyone's identity, I want to share a handful of quotes that I felt encapsulated your experiences with Inpatient. These quotes range from positive to negative and many shades in between, but I felt they were some of the more impactful ones that I read in your emails, and I wanted to share them here. I do believe taking control away from someone with an eating disorder is a good way to make people see that there is a life without your eating disorder and that you are more than body size. I think it's a misunderstanding to think that inpatient treatment will make the patient recover or heal them completely. It is up to the patient when they'll have the courage to face their demons. It takes time. I was not going to heal from my inpatient treatment, but I was able to use it as a major resource and tool. After partial hospitalization, I still don't feel like I was equipped to deal with my eating disorder thoughts and behaviors in the real world. I was still obsessive about calories, so naturally I cut back on food intake as soon as I could, prolonging my recovery unnecessarily. I felt like the doctors were putting all this effort into my body, but none into my mind or well-being most of the time. That, or I was just too sick to really learn how to use what they were trying to teach me effectively. The staff won't do everything right, but recovery is right. And that's where they're helping you to get. I honestly believe that without treatment and the help of my amazing team, I would not be as recovered as I am and so willing to keep up my recovery every single day. Personally, I thought being under this strict order was helpful. However, every time I went back into the real world, I would lose control and fall back into old behaviors. It was also easier for me to eat and accept more food in inpatient care because I was basically forced or allowed to eat. I feel like being in the clinic didn't help me because I would talk about my disorder all the time, and it was like my obsession only grew bigger. Plus, inside the clinic was a lot of competition between the patients. I was always talking about my weight and my body dysmorphia. It was a weird sense of feeling proud of all my accomplishments. The main message was that if you can get out of here and gain or maintain, then you've got this. So that's what I did, but it was still so disordered. I will say it did help me get out of patterns that I was stuck in, and I probably would have died without that help because as desperate as I was to get well, I was also absolutely fucking terrified. But obviously these habits came back over the years, and although I seem fine, I have a good job, friends, and can do what I want, I still have so many demons that affect my life daily, like food fears and rules, over-exercising, missing social events, and severe event and social anxiety. I think the hospital depends utterly on your personal state. For some people, it keeps them alive and the treatment team is not aiming for the person to make a full recovery. The greatest strength of inpatient is the accountability and the connectivity. Other people are going through the same process, and it's often helpful to be made to eat. The permission to eat is taken out of your hands. The greatest downfall is the lack of individualized treatment. I always felt like a square peg in a round hole. The meal plans and treatment plans were standardized. And since everyone's eating disorder is different, I felt like their treatment plans should have been different too. I guess it got me out of the danger zone in terms of my low weight, but I did relapse when I was released and I got to a very low weight again. I think the immense focus on food made me even more focused on it. I learned inpatient is a place I never want to be again, but I am grateful for. Okay, those are all the quotes. Again, you guys, thank you so much to all the men and women who reached out and shared your deeply personal stories with me. I really, really appreciate it. This video is one of my favorites to put together. Small side note, if you're watching this and you're wishing that you could have submitted your story to me to be a part of my learning in this video process, don't worry. This is not the last video in which I hope to utilize my audience because you guys are all special and amazing, and I know you all have crazy, incredible stories that need to be told. So if you want to be involved in the next video where I do something like this, just make sure you're following me on Instagram. I'm sure I'll put something around. So, how do I feel about inpatient now? I firmly believe that people who need the support that they're not given at home or who are in need of immediate medical attention or any medical attention due to symptoms of starvation or malnourishment definitely could 100% benefit from inpatient care. If you are in desperate need for weight gain that you know you won't be able to handle or tackle on your own, these facilities are incredible places and supportive places where you can go and have someone help you get there. I also really enjoy the mandatory therapy and group therapy sessions, as I believe therapy is absolutely necessary for any kind of recovery. If this is how you get to speak to a mental health professional, so be it. That's fantastic. A couple of things I wasn't so hot on as I was reading these stories is, well, the first one is the emphasis on weight. We all hopefully know already on this channel that your weight does not qualify or disqualify you from having an eating disorder. This is, of course, relatively new information that is being understood, but a person who is at a quote-unquote healthy weight can be just as sick and malnourished and dying as someone who is quote-unquote underweight if this healthy weight is under their set point. Weight is not a determining factor for illness. I also didn't appreciate the heavy use of BMI in a lot of these stories to determine if someone was healing or not. I understand the use of like gaining weight, is a good thing and it gives you more freedoms, but using BMI to determine that enforces the notion that BMI is anything but absolute bullshit. And we all know it's bullshit. And lastly, I didn't like that the concept of extreme hunger didn't seem to be addressed or honored. I had a few people tell me that even if they wanted to eat more, once they had eaten everything they were supposed to for their meal, they were not allowed additional food if they asked for it. Because your meals are controlled by an outside force, there isn't a lot of wiggle room in actually being able to eat what you are craving or eat whenever you want because there are set times, or eating as much as you want because there are set meals. I do think this is how a lot of people leave in a quasi-recovered state. Yes, you're eating more, but there's still these patterns and rules around food in just a different kind of way. Overall, I think that if your heart and your mind is ready and willing to accept and go into recovery, then an inpatient or an outpatient facility could be exactly the kick in the butt that you need to get it going. Some people, they just don't have the willpower or the support in place to take on recovery on their own, and that is okay. There is nothing wrong with that. And if you want recovery and you think going inpatient is going to be what gets you there, I 100% agree and support you. No matter how you choose to recover, you have to really want it to have long-lasting success. Okay, that is it. I have talked for so long. I hope you guys liked this video and that you learned as much as I did if you didn't already know about inpatient care. Thank you again so much to everybody who shared your stories with me. It was absolutely so helpful and I very much appreciate it. Until next time, bye.